Hi, I'm Eddie Burke. I've been the bartender at the Hollywood Improv for 40 years, and this is my podcast, Eddie's Bar at the Improv. All right, guys, welcome again to the pandemic version of Eddie's Bar at the Improv podcast. Myself and Mike Carano today are going to talk about some of the people that have worked at the Improv, not necessarily as comedians, but as servers, as doormen, as bartenders and whatever, and gone on to prominence in the entertainment business. And again, not so much that you know their names, but they are people that have been and are very successful in entertainment or whatever else endeavor that they may have come up with. And so I guess I'll get us started, Mike.
Well, first of all, let's point out that this is your 50th episode.
Yes, that's right.
Which is crazy if you think about it.
I know. This is our 50th consecutive recording. We have been lucky enough not to miss a week. We've been consistent. I hope all you guys have enjoyed this. Because myself and Mike mainly have worked very hard on this. And, you know, we're enjoying it. I hope you guys are too, because the people that we have, you may have not have heard of, but I think their stories are very interesting and some of the things they have to say. But it's amazing that we've already gone through 50. And
yeah, just thinking about the fact that you've talked for 50 hours on camera. No, but I mean, that's a lot.
Oh, I know. I did. Anybody that can listen to me for 50 hours. Well, we were still at the club. I can't remember who this was, but somebody told me that they and their girlfriend were driving up to Yosemite and they binged on my podcast. And I said, what do you mean binged? How many did you listen to? And I said, probably about 7 or 8.
Wow.
So how can you listen to me for that long? He said, you know, it wasn't that. Maybe I'm the one that has issues with myself.
Yeah, you know what I'd like to know from people is if you did not work at the Improv and this doesn't strike like an emotional, you know, for us, we're there. Yeah. And it was a huge part of our lives. And I mean, decades and decades for both of us. If you never worked there, maybe you went once or twice, like what does this do for you? Like what information? Because I wonder sometimes about that, like whether or not the inside baseball kind of talk about working in this particular club, or if the club is actually so recognized and so legendary that people are interested in what happens to it. Like if I were to watch a documentary about the Apollo or, you know, Radio City, even though I wasn't there, I still want to know why this place is so known.
Well, that's a good point, because along with that, it'd be interesting to see if there are other aspects that people want to know about.
That's what I'm getting to. Yeah, absolutely.
That maybe we haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, like if you did not work there, what curiosities do you have about this establishment? And because, you know, there's the obvious stuff, the celebrity encounters and the being around creative people and stuff and the fun.
Right.
But I wonder.
Yeah, you know, you guys, if you can, you know, those of you that listen, if you could let us know, that would be great. I do have an email, eddiesbar@improv.com.
Yep. Move your camera down just a little bit, Eddie. The bottom of your head is getting cut out. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That looks great.
Great. Okay. So, you know, like I said, I do have an email that Mike and I can look at if you are of a mind to let us know. Again, it's eddiesbar@improv.com. Not but eddiesbar@improv.com. And sooner or later, I will start pounding things on Instagram as soon as I figure that one out and get this, you know, maybe a little bit more rolling. But in the meantime, this is going to be a little bit interesting, I think, you know, in terms
That's
of...
a sell. That's a great pitch. Yeah. This is going to be a little bit interesting.
Well, I think, you know, I find that like for me, when I started looking up and trying to remember who these people were that worked there and then went on, I went like, Oh, really? I totally forgot about that person. And like, I'll start off with like maybe one of the most well-known and controversial at the end of his career, which was Les Moonves.
Mm-hmm.
Les was a bartender at the Improv before I got there, even though I knew Les. Actually, I met Les as soon as I came out here in 1976, and we were friends for a bit. I played softball on a team that he managed, but he went on to obviously become the head of CBS.
Yeah. Well, he did a lot of other stuff before that. He was an agent. He was, I think he may have run a management. I mean, ICM and stuff, I believe. He was very successful. I mean, insanely successful.
Well, he ran, he was head of Lorimar, which became Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And he also, let's see, he was an actor for a while, but I don't think he felt that was his calling. And in fact, like I knew him well enough that when I came out here, he and I sat up at his house one day and he helped me write my first resume as an actor.
Wow.
Which I was very grateful for, because I had no clue at that point what I was doing. And, we lost touch, but I think he got a little busy.
Yeah.
But like I said, let's see, Lorimar, which became Warner Brothers, and then he was head of CBS, and then ran into some controversy a few years ago with, unfortunately, some sexual harassment charges, and now he's kind of on the wayside, but I hope he's good. And he's one of the most obvious or more well-known.
Yeah, not necessarily in a celebrity type of way, but as a success story, because he worked his way up from bartender at the Improv to the president of CBS Viacom, and overseeing Paramount and all that stuff. And it was kind of crazy. Wait, did he do Paramount?
No, he didn't do Paramount. He did. He was. I
think he did, because there was a point when we were trying to get Star Trek re-upped again, and we had to go to CBS for permission. And the person I talked to went straight to Les Moonves, and he said it didn't make enough money.
And that was Paramount?
I don't remember the correlation. Maybe CBS owns Paramount. I don't know.
Well, neither do I. Who knows who owns what? But
now I wish I wouldn't have brought it up, but I do vividly remember, and I remember the person that we spoke to, which was an old friend named Andy, who worked directly with Les at Television City. And he said, I asked him, I brought it up, and he said, it's not enough money. It's not profitable.
Yeah, well, that's the bottom line with all.
Which, by the way, I should point out, was a live stage version of Star Trek that I produced and directed, and it didn't make a lot of money, but it was great and fun and successful.
And you did that at Irvine,
the Irvine Improv,
the Hollywood one.
No, we were going to, and then the contract expired, and then everyone got fired at Paramount, and I could have just disregarded the contract, and we probably could have run in the back room for a year. Because it was selling out most shows, and I didn't realize that there was so much discombobulated, jumbled craziness happening at Paramount that they wouldn't have even noticed. I just stuck to the contract.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's water under the bridge, and I guess you have any interest in doing that still?
No, it's too much work.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. All right. Well, another guy that I know Les knows very well, and I'm assuming you know or knew him, or at least know the name, is Chris Albrecht.
Yes.
I don't know how well I knew Chris.
I don't know him at all, but I knew we knew he was our boss when I worked on HBO shows.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Back in the 90s.
Yep. Chris was a manager at the New York Improv, became partners with Bud and Silver at the New York Improv when they sort of moved out here at first. He came out here. I don't recall if he ever really worked at the Hollywood Improv, but he went on to become an agent at ICM, the head of HBO original programming when they developed The Sopranos and stuff like that.
Sex and the City, Entourage, all the like their peak time. You know what? And since you brought up ICM, I think I was mistaking Albrecht for Les Moonves, because I thought Les, but I think Les did run an agency though.
I don't know. That didn't come up in my my wonderful research. But with Chris,
just stacks of encyclopedias next to you.
Yeah, I've got Wikipedia here. Oh, also, it's funny. And I didn't know this about Chris, but Chris was part of a comedy duo in New York with Bob Zmuda.
Yes, I did not know that either until I was reading about him, and I thought that was fascinating. Like, he was Zmuda's partner before Zmuda went over with Andy Kaufman.
Right. And I had no idea about that, which makes sense in the fact that the two of them co-founded Comic Relief.
Yes.
Chris was involved with Zmuda when they founded Comic Relief back in, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever went to those shows, but they were spectacular. At least from my perspective as a super fortunate person, they got to go back to hang out backstage the whole time. It was everybody from all your friends that are comics to Steve Martin, Martin Short, Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal, Robin, Chris Rock. Everybody congregated in this one place to do this show that was like 4 hours long. And all you did was hang out backstage and feast on amazing food and laugh. And it was so much fun. Yeah,
those beginning Comic Relief fundraisers with Billy Crystal, Robin, and Whoopi Goldberg emceeing are priceless. There's no way they can ever be matched. And
we just look at the gamut, like the people that they had on. You'd have George Carlin, then you'd have somebody we know that's like a middle or an opener. Then you'd have it was every single, and then the legends would come out, and it was just it was ridiculous. Like, I'd go watch Richard Jenny for 5 minutes, and I go backstage, eat a bunch of shrimp, and then I go back out and watch Rock for 10 minutes, and then come back and then go back out and watch Steve Martin, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, that was Comic Relief, and those were the days when comedy, that was still like what, the 90s, the early 90s, and that was still a little bit of a different time going on. It's I'd like to see them do it again. I don't know whether or not. I think on and off they've talked about it, but I haven't seen it. But anyway, Chris went on also up until recently was the head of Stars Network.
Yes.
And I mean, when you think about the shows and the stations that he's been involved with, I mean, he's got quite a resume and quite a number of accomplishments. And unfortunately, again, here's a man that had a little incident in Las Vegas with his girlfriend, and that kind of blew up his career at HBO back then. But he's gone on to bigger and better things too. It's hey guys, you got to keep these things. Let's not do them. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just keep on moving on. You GM'd in San Diego, and you've been involved with several of you've been involved with a lot of the clubs. Are there anybody offhand that you might think of that might have been?
The two obvious people that worked at the Improv that I knew as Improv employees that went on were Dat Fan from Irvine and Adam Devine.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
There's all these other peripheral people that I think of that work in the business. John Kirk, one of the servers at Melrose, has been in virtually every Adam Sandler movie.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. This is true. The things that I've come up with too is like, and you probably may not know these people because they might have been there before you. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Danny Aiello worked.
Oh, yes. I did not think of that. I did not know him.
He worked for Bud in New York. I just knew him to say hello. But his son, Ricky Aiello, worked the door at the Improv I believe, in the 80s. And he was there, I guess not too long. But then he went on to become an actor and a stuntman and have a pretty successful career. And also there's another guy named Daniel Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's brother. And the time that he worked at the Improv was a time when he was having drinking issues. I remember him in the middle of his shift coming up to the bar and going, "Eddie, can you slip me a drink?" And I'm like, "Danny, no, I can't." It's like, go back to the door. He had his issues back then, but he went on to a very, very decent career as an actor, and he's still going. That whole family is. You've also got a woman named Eileen Khan.
Yes, yeah. Who has been a guest on this show.
Right. And she was a server back in the early 80s. And she has become a producer and writer on Mad About You, Just Shoot Me, a bunch of Disney shows, Casey at something or other. What the heck is it? Casey, whatever. But she's also written a movie with Larry Miller, her husband, and has just been super successful. And again, somebody who is not a comedian anymore. I think she might have wanted to be at one point, but she's just gone on to her writing. Actually, there is one thing I got to say about her, and I told her this years and years and years ago. She did a commercial for Disneyland, and Eileen has got red hair and this big smile, and to me, it was just such a great, great commercial. I don't know if she ever did any other spots or whatever, but it was, I have no idea why I'm talking about that, but I just...
No, it's interesting. It's interesting because she was so vivacious and her personality was so big when you had her on the podcast. I kind of wished I was around when she was working there.
Oh yeah, she is. She was, she is vivacious and she's very friendly and she's a sweetheart. In fact, she and her partner, when they were doing Just Shoot Me, her partner was Andy, God, I can't think of Andy's last name, writing partner. Anyway, the two of them called me in to read for the part of a bartender. And before I got in to read, they had mentioned to David Spade that they were bringing me in to read. And Spade said to them, "Don't bring him in to read, just hire him." Which was like, it was so nice of David. Yeah. It was nice of them to bring me in, and they didn't have that power, but he did.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really nice, a nice moment for us. Let's see, Eileen, here's one that you probably don't know about. There's a woman named Callie Corey who wrote Thelma and Louise. She was a server there for a short period of time. And obviously Thelma and Louise have come on to be, to have a very big cult following and enjoyable. She's also been producing and directing, I believe, on TV. And, they're just one of our many success stories, that have come on. But, of course, you mentioned Adam, and Adam, goes without saying. And I'm going to tell this story every goddamn time I talk about Adam Devine. Is like when he used to answer the phones at the club, I was begging him. I said, "Adam, you got to answer the phone like this. Hollywood Improv, Devine on the line." And he would never do that. He just looked at me and would walk away. I just wanted to do that so bad. I wanted him to do it, but he never would. But he's a great guy and a good friend. There are a lot of, when you worked San Diego, I don't know, were there a lot of any employees?
No, there was not a single employee that wanted to be a comedian at that club, which was what differentiates the road clubs from Hollywood. I think most people in Hollywood want to be comics that work there.
Right.
San Diego, they were just kids passing through town, and they got jobs while they were going to college. And it was just, we would, work at the Improv, and then we'd go drink afterwards. It was great. It was spectacular, but it was not this hunger for show business and getting ahead. Most of them had no plans for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Santa Monica Club, when that was in existence, that had a number of people too that became very successful. Dave Rath, he was a doorman down there.
Yep, good friend.
And Dave is become a very big manager and producer, and a very good guy. And he worked there for several years.
Well, his partner in his company, Cara Welker, she answered the phones at the Irvine Improv.
Ah, okay.
I forgot about her too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's so the two of them have their improv roots. I love it. And Judd Apatow worked at Santa Monica. Am I correct?
I should have texted him and asked him, because I thought about that too. I don't know if he did or not. He's never said that he did, but that seems to have come up. Like when him and Sandler were roommates, it seems like he may have gotten a job there, but I don't know. Okay,
that just seems to resonate with me that he did, that he worked there as a door guy, but I can't swear to that. Adam's other partner, Alan, God damn, I can't think of his last name. I think might have worked down there too. Adam obviously did not work at the Improv other than his stand-up, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But his story goes on. There is
I know I'm veering off the topic here, which is employees that became successful. But one of the things that was most interesting to me about all the time I spent there was the comics that I was friends with when they were not known at all. And Sandler, Spade, Judd. There's so many people that you just watched them get more and more well known, and then get on TV, and then develop into these monster. Like Adam is just cranking out movies and just creating stuff, and built this incredible company. And I remember when he was just
Adam,
almost an opener, and everyone was at the same point. It was Spade and Adam and Schneider and all these guys that we would use all the time, and it was just.
The nice thing about that is that Adam. Adam is very loyal to his friends, and all of those guys, like you had mentioned, John Kirk. John, I think, knew Adam from NYU back in New York or something. I don't know if they were roommates or whatever, but, he does use all of his people all the time. Rob Schneider and Spade and whatever.
And Nealon and Norm. And I mean, it's always, I love that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. No, I do too. I think, it's the same way in every single business. It's just that in entertainment, it stands out. And it's like the only time people ever say anything negative about that stuff is when they want in. They really want to be part of that group or any group, so that they, like De Niro, if you watch his movies, a lot of the times it's just in the gangster ones, in the mafia ones, it was the same guys over and over again. And it was friends, I'm sure, people that he knew. And again, that's just life. Entertainment just stands out more because it's out there and everybody sees. There's another guy who that you probably didn't think. I'm going to just ring your mind here. Jimmy Miller.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I forgot that Jimmy Miller worked there. Wow. Holy smokes. Right.
Jimmy Miller was a door guy or host or whatever, again, in the 80s. He he went on to be one of the top managers in Hollywood.
He managed Jon Stewart, Jim Carrey, still manages Judd Apatow, a litany of actors and super success. Gary Shandling, probably, because they were always together. At least the last couple of times I saw Gary, he was with Jimmy. But I love Jimmy Miller.
Yeah,
I love that guy, man.
Oh, he was always nice. I have God, I think he ran through the club maybe 8 months ago and just came over and said hi. But I have not seen him in God knows how long.
I'm going to call him. I need to call him. I remember when I was an assistant manager at the Improv in San Diego, and I went to the Comedy and Magic Club, and Jimmy was there. And he was booking that club at the time. And I kind of just said, hey, man, if there's anything I can do for you. And he goes, you can't do anything for me. And I was like, I love this guy. He meant it to be fun. He's trying to be funny.
Yeah. Well, if
and I was like,
to him, ask him if he wants to do the podcast. As I just thought about that. It'd be great to have him on. There are also, there's a couple of people that when I started there, there's a guy and they were writing partners when I met them and dating, I guess, at that time. Robert Pucci and Alana Hamels, and they became writers. And I assume they're still writing and directing, but they left because they had, I think they wrote a movie called The Last Hour is what I've come up with. And then they both wrote another movie called The Spider and the Fly. But they, another success story.
And they worked in Hollywood?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were there before me, I believe. They got there and went on to writing. So, between them and Callie Corey, and I'm sure there's others that also have gone on that I even can't remember. But another one was, and I don't remember her working at the Hollywood Improv. She might have been there before me, was Deborah Winger.
Oh, yeah. That came up with the Bud interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She apparently worked at the Hollywood Improv as a waitress. And I think she went on to a pretty decent career.
I believe so.
Yeah. That and let's see. The Pucci and Alana story to me is kind of unique because they are truly behind the scenes. You don't know them. I have never even seen their names other than at the very beginning. And there are just so many people out there that have come through our club and the improv clubs that are just like, they kind of use it as a stepping stone, and more power to them because that's what life is.
It makes sense too. If you come out as a young person and you want to get into the business, you can become a waiter to pay your bills, or you can go work at a fun venue. Mm-hmm. And it makes more sense to me. And plus you make connections. You hang out at the Improv every single day. You're going to meet people.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, the comics that work there, nowadays, their thing is to kind of hook up with a big name comic to maybe let them take them on the road to feature for them and grow and whatever. It's, they come to the Improv with a purpose. It's not just, I'm working at the Improv. It's, it's like, no, I'm working at the Improv because I want to meet big name comics and befriend them and maybe hopefully have them take me on the road as a feature or opener or anything so that I can build my skills or get a little bit well known. And there's a number of them that do that,
Well, it's not just comics that do it, because I look at my life and I'm not successful. It's all of the things that happened for me that were fun and great and led to everything else were from the Improv. Mm-hmm. Hanging out with Dennis Miller at the Improv, and then he offered me a job, and then I got to work on that show, and that show led to Mr. Show, and that show led to this, and that, and it all came from the Improv. Star Trek came from the Improv. Everything came from that, came from being around these people and just being there.
Well, I think that's true with most of us. My very first, no, that's not true. My very first SAG job came sort of through the Improv. A couple of friends of mine came in, my neighbors, when I lived in North Hollywood, with this guy one night, and he happened to have been a producer or whatever for commercials for, I think it was Chevy. And, we're talking all night, all of us and whatever. And he said to me, are you a member of SAG? And I said, yeah. He said, I'm shooting a commercial tomorrow and we lost one of our drivers. Would you be interested in driving? And I said, well, honestly, yes, I am interested, but I've never, done precision driving or anything. And he goes, it's not a big deal. But anyway, that's the kind of thing that used to happen then too.
Yeah.
Now it's not so much. You'd meet casting directors, you would meet producers. It was a little bit smaller of a world. Now it is so vast. There are so many things going on that you just you don't know who to believe. You don't know who's doing what, and you don't know if it's really going to lead to anything. But back then it was a little bit different. It's this also reminds me of my first acting job, which I think I've told you about, and that was on Good Times.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Johnny Witherspoon was actually in my scene. I had a very, what they called a silent bit at that time, and it was an after job. And I'm at my apartment one day and I get a call, and the woman on the other end, I can't remember her name, Jane Fenton, maybe, one of the biggest casting directors going. And she said to me, can you come in and do some extra work on Good Times? And I said to her, I appreciate your calling, but I don't want to do extra work. I said, that's not what I'm here for, And
Did you think it would pigeonhole you or people wouldn't take you seriously?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said, because once you do extra work, people always look at you as an extra. And she said, well, look, number one, you'd be doing me a tremendous favor, which sold me right there. It's like, well, how do you say no? Number two,
to the Godfather.
Number two, there's a very good chance that this will be upgraded. And so I said, okay. And as it turns out, it was upgraded, and it led to my after card, and then through that, my SAG card. But it's very hard when somebody as big as she was back then, casting Good Times and whatever other CBS shows, says well, you'd be doing me a favor. And you go, what are you supposed to say?
I don't want to do you a favor, but I'll call on you for a favor in the future.
Right. Exactly. So that's again, going back and forth at the Improv, things have kind of changed like that. Now it is so much more about comedy, even though it was still comedy always. Now it's almost 100% in the sense that you don't get too many producers and directors of film and TV just kind of wandering around to maybe find somebody.
It could be because of access also. With the internet, you can just log on and watch people and go, that's the right person for this part, that's the right person for that part.
Yeah.
Back in those days, you had to go out and look at them. I remember vividly managers and agents going to comedy clubs every night looking for people.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally looking. And I don't know if that happens anymore. I don't hear people coming in going, I'm just seeing who's out there.
No, they don't have to. They don't have anywhere near the number of showcases that used to occur. There would be showcases 2-3 times a week back in the day. Now it's like 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah.
And plus it was also a time where people were literally discovered.
Mm-hmm.
Now everyone's got an online presence and you know what's up with everybody all the time. So there's no genius that's in hiding that's going to walk out on stage and you're going to be like, how come I never heard of this guy or this girl?
Right.
Because everyone's around.
Yeah, the interesting thing about what's transpired over the years is that back in the day when you had, like, let's say, you had Roseanne, you had Brett Butler, you had that whole genre of comics, they did stand-up so that they could get a TV show. Now it's reversed. People are when they talk about getting a TV show, it's so that they get the recognizability to go out and tour in big theaters as a comedian and draw people in from that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the same thing that happened with music, where it used to be album sales that filled your bank account, and then that just dried up completely. So it was solely touring. So people would just make albums at a loss so that they could sell out arenas and make a bunch of money. And I wonder if it's the same thing with comics.
I wouldn't be surprised, because all of those, the comics, when they are that big, and I'll give you another story, Larry the Cable Guy, I knew his manager, and this has got to be, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe longer. One day he comes in and he's talking to me about, we're just talking. And he was telling me that Larry had got an offer to do a movie for $1 million. And they said, look, it'll be $1 million. He'll be done in 25 or 30 days. And, that's it. And the manager said he laughed and he said, guys, do you realize that he makes that money in a weekend selling out theaters? He does not have to do a movie to get $1 million.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast these days. It's those big theaters, and we all pay through the nose to go see.
Of course.
Them. I remember 10 years ago going to a Springsteen concert out here, and it cost me $100 a ticket, and I was like 5 million miles away.
Yeah.
And God knows what the people down below were spending, $500 or whatever. And these guys, look, you have a good time, and that's all that counts after you spend. If you can say that after you spend your money.
That is so crazy that you say that, because I think about when I was a teenager and I would buy concert tickets and it was $16.50, and I was like, oh my God, it's almost $20. This is insane.
Yeah.
And now, in the last couple of years, I've paid $300 for a ticket for concerts more than a few times. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it going, $300 I just paid to sit like halfway back from the stage. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're like, this is nuts.
I know. I took my wife to see, what's his name? Andre Bocelli, I think.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I think that cost us $500 or $600 a ticket. And again, it was because it was a birthday present and she loves the guy.
Yeah.
At the same time, it was like, holy mackerel, $500 a ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah. This money. And it's like, there's our rent and
don't get up to pee during the show.
Oh God, no. I'll tell you, and this is kind of a stupid story, but I had no idea who he was or what he was, and I knew nothing about him other than she talked about him and she loved him and whatever.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
What's that?
Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did. We're sitting there before the show starts, and as it starts, he walks out with a woman on his arm. She's walking him out. And I knew nothing about him. I said to my wife, and not totally quiet, you know me, I said, like, oh God, what a diva. He needs somebody to walk out. I had no idea he was blind. I had not a clue, and she just hauled off.
Stevie Wonder can't go anywhere without his entourage.
Oh,
what an egomaniac.
You talk about embarrassing. The people around me were like, who is this idiot? And I felt like, who is this idiot? because it was me.
That's so great. That's fantastic.
It's such a sick story, but it's something that I would do and say because I had never heard of the guy. And did I have a good time? Yes, it was a kind of like a Christmas concert, I believe, at Christmas time, and it was enjoyable. I'm not a big fan
opera person.
Yeah, no, not at all there. But I like different things about different kinds of music, and it was good. It was fun.
He's pretty incredible. I mean, I think that was a treat that you got to see him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the bigger treat for me was Springsteen.
Yeah, of course.
Like, he's like my music icon. And by the way, he was at the club once. He didn't come in. He was he was walking by, and I did not see him. Skylar Stone saw him and ran out and asked him to take a picture.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
And he did. He took a picture with him. And it was, it's somehow or other, everybody gets connected. Everybody comes through. Everybody knows and sees the Improv.
I got to tell you, man, I was not always a huge Springsteen fan, even though Nebraska is in my top 10 albums of all time.
Really?
And Dan Murr, the manager of the Tempe Improv, was friends with Nils. And Nils goes to the Improv a lot in Tempe, where he lives. And Dan brought me and a bunch of comics, Craig Shoemaker and a bunch of other people, to see Springsteen. And we all got backstage, and it was weird. I don't what am I going to say to those? I have nothing I just look like a poser, like, oh, hi. But that show blew my mind. Right. And I am a huge, huge fan of him and everything they do now.
Yeah.
It was, I did not anticipate for 2.5 hours not getting bored, and I was never bored for a second.
No, the fact that when they're on stage, it is so entertaining. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's not like they're just standing there and playing. And these days, I would imagine most groups are like that. You have to entertain. Otherwise, all these people that go to 100 concerts a year of somebody are not going to go. And from what I hear about Springsteen, all of his concerts, even are a little bit different.
Yeah.
They're never like exactly the same. He changes his song choices and stuff like that. But
there's an interesting facet about music, and I'm not degrading anybody, but there are certain people and certain bands that are bigger. And I mean, literally, Springsteen in an arena or a stadium, absolutely. The Stones in an arena or a stadium, absolutely. U2 is a stadium band. And then there's bands that are not stadium bands, that are theater bands. And if they move to a bigger arena, even if they can sell the tickets, it doesn't fill it.
Yeah.
Roger Waters is a stadium guy, where you can be in the stadium and get the same sense of watching somebody you love in a small club. But people can't make that jump. And I don't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just certain people have a personality. It's the same with comedy. There's certain comics you can go see in an arena and it's going to be fine. But a lot of guys, you need to be in a small club and watch them close. You need to see their face. You need to sense that you're near them.
Do you think that has more to do with the fact that maybe they're not a band oriented act? Like maybe they're more, let's say, I don't know. Maybe they're Dylan, or they're
maybe. There's just bands that there's a lot of great. My favorite bands, that are club bands, and they're not arena bands. They're not huge venue bands because they can't. Springsteen has an aura and a way to control the audience, and his entire band does. Mm-hmm. And U2 has the same thing. And there's a bunch of bands that are stadium bands, and they can reach out, they can affect people that are 150, 200 yards away, and everyone doesn't have that. And it's just, to me, it's just an interesting dichotomy that a lot of people can't get over that. And again, it's not a slam on their ability. It's just you're this.
In the E Street Band, you basically know everybody else.
Absolutely.
Too. This is
That
not.
was one of the things that I thought was striking about the opening of the concert,
Mm-hmm.
because they came out in order of famousness onto a real simple stage with nothing on it but a drum set. And you knew Max Weinberg from Conan O'Brien, and then Little Steven, obviously, from The Soprano. I mean, I knew who they were before that, but, you know, from The Sopranos comes out, and then Bruce comes out, and Clarence was there at the time, and Nils, and you knew everybody, and it was, but, you know, it's all Bruce.
Yeah.
Carrying
the thing.
It
is. But the bottom line, again, is that they know, that the whole, it's like family. You know everybody.
Yeah.
There is a front man, and his name is Bruce Springsteen, but you still know everybody else. And would you go if Springsteen wasn't there? Probably not. But at the same time, all of these guys are great on their own. All of them, come together to make one of the best rock bands in the history of show business, period.
Absolutely.
And,
you know what's crazy, and I know we're getting way off topic here, but
it's like
but I love when it's original people. Like, the thing I like about the Stones is same drummer, same guitar player, same singer. And then when Bill Wyman left and they replaced him with it wasn't Randy Jackson, or was it Randy? No. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Very well-known bass player from San Diego. Either way, that guy has been in the Stones longer than Bill Wyman was in the Stones at this point. Isn't that freaky?
It's crazy, yeah, because they have been together for
at least 50 years.
Yeah, God. So the Beatles came to New York, to America, in 1969. No, I'm sorry, 1964.
Yeah, because it was way before. Because I think Sgt. Pepper. I mean, before they broke up in the early 70s.
1963 or 1964, and the Stones were right behind them. And so, God, that's got to be at least 50 years. And nobody stays together 50 years as a band. And I don't think I've ever heard of them thinking about disbanding, it's at all.
Yeah. It's the same as with, I love the legacy people, and I love the people that are around so long, they get the honor of being like living legends. Like because you do, even if you're not the greatest thing in the world, if you've been doing the same thing for 30, 40, 50 years, you've gone into a new area where it's like you're legit. There's no one going to deny your legitimacy, and it's always on the whim of one or two people, because I've heard Keith Richards say it, I've heard people in Tom Petty's band say it, and Bruce Springsteen's band, it's up to Bruce when we want to tour. Like Keith Richards will go like, I got to wait for Mick to go, let's do it.
Well, I've thought about that particular topic, in the sense that no matter how great a band is and how well known the individuals are, every band has to have a leader. Period. Yeah. It's really that simple. When you've got that many people, otherwise there's hell on wheels. You've got no way to control things. Let's go on tour next week. Nah, let's make it 2 weeks from now.
Every band that has two leaders breaks up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It never works. Ever.
Always.
Yeah. It's too hard. That's why you've got to have. I've heard things about Springsteen being like, very, very not tough, but rigid in, this is what I want, and that sort of thing. And that's what makes for a great, really singer, entertainer, actor,
Eddie,
whatever.
I don't know if you watched the Tom Petty documentary that was directed by Peter Bogdanovich, but it's excellent. And Tom Petty talks about how difficult it was to have the conversation with the rest of the band that I'm the primary writer, I'm the singer, and I'm going to take a bigger percentage. And it happened pretty early on, and they were all very disheartened and very upset about it, but they all grew to realize he's right.
Right.
And why, it's your life, but do I want to play in Tom Petty's band for 35 or 40 years, or do I want to start over?
Yeah, and be a studio musician or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part humility and part using your head, and it's the same with all those guys. It's the same with all those people. You need to. It's tough, man. You can't do. It's not a five-way split.
When you are in the upper echelon of any field, you've gotten there for a reason, and part of that reason in everybody's makeup is called arrogance. And that doesn't have to be bad. You have to feel that you are very good, great, whatever.
I don't even know if it's arrogance. I think it's confidence.
Okay, well,
like, because arrogance is off-putting to a lot of people, but I don't think if you're arrogant, people are going to want to stick around.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're right. That's for lack of a better term, or a perfectionist. One of the things I did looping work on the movie A Mirror Has Two Faces, which is a Barbra Streisand movie.
Yes.
And if you've ever heard anything about Barbra Streisand, is everybody, she's a perfectionist. We don't, we don't like her, this and that and that and this. And we were looping one day. And she's there. She's directing basically the looping session because she knows what she wants. And just as an aside, James Brolin did come in too a little later. But she was...
That guy's got nothing to do if he's hanging out at her work sessions.
I know, right? She was looking for an announcer type for an airport, like Flight 12 is leaving on whatever in 10 minutes. And so everybody's trying this, and nobody's getting it from what she wants. And I was not called up to do it. I just, as most loopers will do, they will say something from their seat, like, say the line. And she turns and hears me say it and says, like, let him try that. So I went up and tried it, and I got lucky. I got it right away. It wasn't a big deal. I just got lucky. It happened.
Did you hear yourself in the movie?
I never watched the movie.
Oh, Eddie.
That's a good point.
You're supposed to watch the movie and listen for your line.
Oh, but my point here is that when we took a break, so many of there were about, I'd say 8 or 10 of us in the room looping, and everybody was going, "What a bitch," and I'm going like, I didn't say anything. I do my job and leave. How do you? She knows what she wants. That's all. She, in this case, is a perfectionist, and she doesn't want to settle for anything less than whatever it is she wants.
Yeah, and you know what else? I have a ton of empathy. I mean, I got over that. A long, long time ago with comics, where I would be like, "What a pain in the ass this guy is," and then you realize everywhere they go, they're around people that don't care as much as them.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a comic and I walk into a club, there's no one there that cares about my act as much as I do. Maybe there's an exception here or there because it's a job to them and they have to do this every day. And the same thing with a theater, the same thing with a movie set with a crew. They don't care. They're just going from movie to movie. And so you have to assert yourself sometimes to make it right. And I get it, man. There's people that are trouble and not easy to work with, but I totally get her name and her face is going to be on that forever. And why would she succumb to someone who has a bad attitude and just go, "You're right, let's just move on"? Or I mean, I get it.
Exactly.
I get it.
I do too. It's like, look, either we're not getting it and we're going to come back, or we're going to stay here till we get it right. It's really that simple. But getting back to comedy for a second. This is
the Bruce Springsteen Hour, brought to you by Eddie's Bar at the Improv.
You brought up comedians and every day, being belabored by people and stuff. One thing people, I don't think, realize about comedians is that most of your successful comedians are very, very smart. They really are, because they have got to be up with everything in terms of their humor and everything else. I have so many times I've seen comedians at the club, at the bar or whatever, and I think to myself, oh, geez, what an idiot or whatever. And then you'll hear them on a talk show or now on a podcast or whatever. And so many of them are just brilliant. They just really know what they're talking about. Their opinions aren't just to get a rise out of people or what have you, but it's a tough career, and one that I certainly didn't choose.
Eddie, I think it goes farther than that. I think a sense of humor is an indicator that you're smart. I really do believe that, because if that weren't the case, women, just going back to caveman feelings, and men are attracted to certain people because of stuff that's built into us. From, she would be a good mother, she would be this healthy, that all of this biological stuff that goes into play. And not to generalize too much, but men will look at a woman at times, and I mean, I don't need to clarify it, a lot of times, and go, she looks like she would be a good mate and a mother. And women will look at men like, he looks like he can provide and he's security. And a lot of times intelligence has a lot to do with that, and a good sense of humor indicates to people that that person is intelligent, which is why they always say women like a guy that makes them laugh.
Yeah.
It's not just because I just like to laugh and I need to be entertained. It's a sense of, the way his brain works.
Yeah, I will have to say that when I was out there sleeping with women, I don't think I ever looked at a woman and said she'd be a good mate.
No, but I'm talking about the basic needs. Like, there's a reason why I feel weird saying it like this, but there's a reason why you look at a woman, like look at her body, and a lot of your internal, going back to the beginnings, is, will she make a good mother? And that's why we're attracted biologically to women's bodies as straight men, to women's bodies. It's not just for your gratification. It's like, can she? And it's the same with women. You can see it when people get older and they get over the initial looks thing. Like, you're looking for something that's going to be a mate and that's going to be a companion and stuff.
What you said about women love a sense of humor. All you have to do is look at some of the comics and their girlfriends.
That's right.
They're not exactly, like most people, they're not George Clooney, and yet they have Jennifer Aniston on their arm or something like that. And it's women, everybody, you make me laugh. It's an attraction.
Yeah. And I am not going to name drop anybody right now, because we all know the guys that have come in with celebrity, incredibly attractive girlfriends, and it's always like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like when Christina Ricci was coming in with who, and then Jennifer Love Hewitt was coming in with a super nice guy, but it was kind of an odd couple.
Oh, that's so common now. With I know I was thinking that same thing about a young comic that came in with not even a celebrity, but just a gorgeous woman who that, I swear to you,
we still want to say who you've already mentioned it, but let's not do it.
I can't
say
his name on the air. It would be embarrassing.
He's such a sweetheart.
He's a great guy, but the looks didn't match hers,
Yeah.
And you go like, this is it. It's the humor that attracts the opposite sex.
It's funny. One of my character flaws is that no matter how good looking the couple is, even if the guy is flawless, like a Greek god, I'm always like, she could do better. I always side with the woman. I'm like, she could do. What's she doing with him? What's she doing with that smart, witty, nice, successful guy that's got an amazing body and a model face? She could do better.
Don't you go like, and I'm that Greek god?
I'm so out of line. My perception is so wrong.
But it's so true. And I think we all do that. It's like, what is she doing with him when she could be with me? It's, well, actually, there's a reason.
That's pretty funny. That's really funny.
Well, I think we've talked enough about music, and I can't think of anybody else at the moment that is on my list. We've gone through most of them for now. Again, if anybody out there, as Mike said earlier, has any topics or
like what you're curious about, like behind the scenes. I've always wondered if people care about what's happening behind the scenes, because something that I've learned, and this podcast has really brought it to the forefront of my mind, is appreciation. Because I've taken this for granted for in my 30 years at the Improv, I took it all for granted. And now that we're reflecting on it, I really go like, that was pretty fun, man. And life is meant to be enjoyed. And I think about all those nights and all those shows and all those people. And sometimes I have an issue with wondering if I'm just like starstruck or I just like hanging out with celebrities. But I don't think that's the case, because being around creative people that have courage, which is what I think comics are, is more fun than just an average. Does that make sense?
Yes,
without sounding like it's starstruck, because to be a comic or to make a TV show or to do this, it requires a lot more work and a lot more sacrifice than anybody knows. And having that ability, having that inside of you to have the guts to get up on a stage and do something makes you an interesting person to me. And I liked being around that. And I took it for granted a lot. There were so many nights I just left. I'm like, Dave Chappelle and John Mayer on stage just riffing for an hour. And after like 30 minutes, I was like, I'm going home. And I was like, I take this for granted because that was entertaining and fun. And it wasn't like looking at them like they're celebrities. We both know Chappelle.
Right.
And John Mayer is always nice when he comes in, but it was like a cool experience that was like inspiring, and it was fun watching the audience love it. And I think about the hundreds and hundreds of times I've got to just be, Dave Chappelle opening for Chris Rock in the Lab, 50 seats.
Right.
And I hung out for the first show, and then the second show I just went, I'm going to go home. And I'm like, well, when is that going to happen again? Like, maybe I should have just hung out. And
I mean, you're right. It is, I think, the fact that it is such a creative community makes it more fun to be around. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to pop in. Do you get a little spoiled? Of course. Look, of course you do. I've been there for 40 years, and it's like, it doesn't matter who walks in. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I agree. I agree completely. But I think what I'm thinking about is like when I was a doorman at the San Diego Improv in the late 80s, early 90s, I remember recognizing that even though I was the lowest paid guy in the chain, in the ladder, all I did was like set up the tables, and then I stood in the back of the room and watched the best comics in the world every night, and became friends with, Brian Regan and Spade and Judd and all these people. And I remember picking up Chris Rock from the airport and having a weird conversation on the drive back, and then hanging out with him for 3 days and just going, oh, this is just my job. And then I think about it in context with, what if I had a fast food job?
Yeah.
My job was so much more fun. And that to me is a better way to spend my time.
I know. And I agree with you, because this podcast has also made me reflect on the fact that I've been very fortunate to be allowed into this community.
Me too.
And to know all these people and to be friends with a lot of them, and to have them just accept me as part of whatever. I mean, you've been around it as long as I have, and it's just, it's a special feeling. It's a special thing when you actually reflect on it.
Absolutely. And the perks.
Being away from it for this period of time with this pandemic has been like, oh my God. I mean, my life is over. It's changed. This is not good.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
You don't
And
realize
if
how
what
much.
we had to look forward to after this was going to an office and selling insurance, no offense to
Yeah.
insurance salespeople, but I would
Yeah.
not be looking forward to that at all. And I don't even work at the club anymore, but I am so looking forward to just driving over the hill and walking in there.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
It's the same thing. The appreciativeness only happens when you have an experience like we do right now, doing this, talking to people about the past, being able to talk to Bud Friedman, to Mark Lano, to Silver Saunders Friedman, to
Eddie,
people like that.
there is so much stuff that crosses my mind almost on a daily basis that I did not know about the improv
Mm-hmm.
that I think is fascinating. And I don't know if this is of any interest to anybody outside of our circle, but like even the Jack Knight interview when he was pointing out that beam above the restaurant that he had fashioned that metal thing on there, I was like, for 15 years, I looked at that and went, what is that? Like, why is there a piece of metal on that beam? And then he told the story, and I was like, that's friggin' fascinating. And then when Silver talked about how they were walking through the original venue before it opened, and a friend of hers from Broadway said, what are you going to call this place?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, how about the improvisation? I'm like, that's it? That's where it came from?
Yeah, I know. You in your own mind, you make things up so romantically, like, oh, they must have come up with all these special things that night and decided, yeah, we're the improvisation. Somebody just throws it out. You know?
The brick wall. The brick wall is the most iconic stand-up comedy thing, period. And that happened because they took the paint off the wall and there was bricks and they didn't have money to do anything else.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. The things that look, I've learned the same things that you have about, especially back in the day in New York. I was never at the club in New York back when I lived in New York. But, now I've learned all these things and we'll have Jack back on to give us more insight into all this because
I didn't realize until you had interviewed a bunch of people how many notorious people hung out there.
Oh,
like I was just like, OJ was here all the time on dance night. Robert Blake was here like every night. I was like, what?
Yeah, that made me
Robert Durst.
Jesus. You know who Norman Wexler is? He wrote Saturday Night Fever.
I don't know who that is, but you've mentioned him before.
A screenwriter. And he used to come into the club, but he literally was a lunatic. And I'll give you an example in a minute. But whenever he came in, Bud would go, if he asks if I'm here, tell him I left. Don't tell him I'm here. I mean, that's how crazy the guy was. This guy in New York lived in the apartment building that my aunt lived on 93rd Street. The address was 123 West 93rd Street. One day, this man opens his window, starts throwing everything in his apartment out the window. He totally lost it. We didn't know who he was at that point at all, but the cops had to come. They had to get up there and they took him out in a straitjacket, I believe.
Wow.
And that's how crazy it was. And that's how crazy the man was. But yeah, the notoriety, we attract a whole hell of a lot of people, We've had, what's the story? I heard the story of, is it Suge Knight coming in?
Oh my God. That was terrifying, actually.
Yeah. I mean,
he had some kind of an argument with comedian D-Ray, and D-Ray hosted the Monday night shows, and Suge decided, I'm going to confront D-Ray, and he showed up at the Improv, and they got into it in the hallway, and then one of the guys threatened to shoot the other. D-Ray's guy said, I don't want to do this, Suge, but if you don't leave, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah. And that happened in the hallway.
Yep.
And the next day, everyone was just kind of laughing it off, and I was like, this isn't good, you guys. Suge Knight is not a good person to come into the club ever. It's always trouble when Suge Knight's around. And I go, this is not pleasant because he might just decide I'll get D-Ray next week. Well, I mean,
I may not get,
and D-Ray stood up to him, like didn't even flinch. And I was like, this is nuts. I don't like seeing this.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I didn't see it. I was there though, but I did not see that. But I heard verbatim what happened, and people said D-Ray just went, get out of, and fought with him. And D-Ray had a security guy with him, or a friend or someone who said, I have a gun, Suge, and if you get any closer, I'm gonna. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
it's a comedy club. It's a comedy club.
Not tonight.
People are here to laugh.
I know we've had a number of incidents like that over the years. Fortunately, they're very few and far between. We've not been the club that attracts violence, fights, whatever. And I assume no comedy club theoretically really is.
No, it's always Comedy Store had a couple of big issues, but that's also because I mean, where they're up on Sunset, and there's all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
Someone fired a gun one time, and it was like craziness, and it was just, that shouldn't be happening in a comedy club.
Once when we had paid security during the Jackie Mason era,
okay,
we had a security guard. I don't know what his issue was, but he goes upstairs one night and his gun comes tumbling down the stairs. Somehow or other, it fell out of his holster and it just came tumbling down. I mean, we've had little incidents. I worked the Monday night, and which is our urban night, for Dave Aubrey when he was there. And the bar was full. All the seats were taken, not packed or anything. All of a sudden, there's a gunshot. Not in the bar, but outside.
Okay.
A guy took a shot at somebody across the street. It was a personal issue, but whatever. Everybody in the bar got up, looked out the window, and just sat back down. I'm practically pissing in my pants. It's like, are you serious? It's like, okay, it was nothing as it turned out. The guy had a personal issue with that guy. He saw him, he took a shot at him, and he missed.
Wow.
But it's like, unfortunately, we've had those issues too.
Hey, I have a question for you that's really off topic, and we can delete this. But as a dean of a school in Harlem, and with everything that's happening right now, with the people protesting because of that cop killing that guy, what am I as a white guy supposed to do to help?
Well, that's interesting.
Like ignoring it does not seem like the right thing to do, and just go like, I'm just staying out of it because I don't know anything about this. But the more I talk to people, and I've talked to Suli, and I've talked to many people. I talked to some of our podcast listeners that are Black, and it's a life I can't relate to, where you really are under suspicion every time you go out. And I think I talked to the woman cutting my hair, and I said, tell me what the difference is for you and your daughter.
You have
what's that? Not the last 3 months. But the woman who cut my hair, we were just talking, and I go, tell me like what goes on for you in life, like as a Black woman with a daughter. And she goes, well, I'll tell you the worst thing that ever happened was, or it's happened twice. She goes, my daughter's 13 and she's been accused by the cops of being a prostitute. And I was like, wow, that would never, ever. I mean, I can't imagine going out in life and having people look at you. Mm-hmm. I mean, people do look at me suspiciously, but that's just because I have an FU ad, I'm for whatever reason. But what are your thoughts on this? Teaching in Harlem, and
I think,
like, what can I do to make my voice heard or make a difference?
We can stop ignoring the problem. Most of us ignore it because we're not in it, and we we know it's wrong, but it's like we tolerate it because it's not happening to us.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, it's gotten worse and worse instead of better, in the sense that, like, if you saw a cop, to me, and I still don't know why this didn't happen.
People didn't rush them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what me too. I was like, you have to go. I'm taking a bullet for the team of humanity, and run in there. But
I personally, I thought about that every time I saw that video. I thought, like, there's people around. Could they
Yeah.
not? And there's only
Yeah.
one. Jesus Christ.
No, there were four
At least I
cops.
think I would have.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like, this was not a, the guy's not struggling, nothing. I don't care what he did before. Nothing was going on. You let the goddamn guy up. He's restrained, whatever. But I don't see the real issue is that the people standing around did nothing.
Yeah.
Except yell at the cops.
Yeah.
And we can no longer, if we all really do want to solve this issue, then we really do have to stop ignoring these things when they happen. You see a cop confronting some black guy on the street for absolutely no reason, just stop and listen and see what, don't be afraid. It's like, these days I was going to, if you're white, they're not going to shoot you. But I think it's a lot of it is our fault in ignoring it, not supporting it. It's not that we support it or condone it. It's that we ignore it. We don't do anything about it. And that's been, I think, the white population's big issue. It's like, look, I know in my mind everybody's equal and this and that, but look, I'm like everybody else. I'm not there.
Yeah. But it's just I can't fathom what that must be like, because Chris Rock has talked about it, and he said he gets pulled over for no reason, and then the cops recognize him and let him go.
Yeah.
But he goes, I still got pulled over, and they're like, hey, oh man, you're Chris Rock, and then they let him go, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
What do you? Because if every time I got in my car I had to worry about getting pulled over for no reason, I would be freaked out.
Well, that happens to me on my way home about 4 or 5 times a year. And
but you're also driving home at 3 a.m.
Right.
And where are you coming at from at 3 a.m? A bar.
Right. Yeah, I know. And you haven't been drinking. But yeah, can you imagine? Bruce Springsteen has a song, I think it's 21 Shots or something like that.
Yeah.
That talks about the mother before telling her son, don't reach in if the cops come to you, don't reach in your pocket, don't pull anything out, sit and stand and whatever. That's what they have. That's what they go through. Yeah. And, I can't fathom how that is. I really can't. I can say I understand, how you feel, but no, I don't.
Yeah, no, you don't, and I don't. And I think we live in a bubble too, and I think this ties into the improv, because comics are kind of just comics. You know what I mean? I've never seen a circumstance where you thought, oh, that's a black comic. Yeah. You're like, oh my God, Chris Rock is here. This is the best.
Right.
You know what? I've never, and I think it's also that we live in LA, because I've never understood until maybe 15 years ago that there was any kind of dislike of Jewish people. Mm-hmm. I never thought, I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone I know is Jewish. What are you talking about? And then you realize there's parts of the country that are like, maybe it's just because I've been around comedy the whole time. I'm like, everyone I know is Jewish.
I listened to a video last night, and I don't know the woman's name. She was some 3rd grade teacher that they were interviewing for whatever reason. And she said some very valid points about how we're brought up and how we're taught. She said, our education system is not an education system. It's an indoctrination system. We're taught that this is how it is, was, should be. It's not, we learn, you're not born a bigot. You learn how to be a bigot.
Yeah.
Whomever. And all these things that we do or don't do are our fault, in the sense that, like I said, we ignore it. We don't do anything about it. And yeah, we're great at giving it all lip service.
Yeah, that's the part that's bothering me, is I see these people posting, and I'm like, you don't really care. And then I'm like, I should post something, and then I go, is that going to be interpreted as I'm just trying to, like, be part of the group. And
yes, that's exactly what it is.
You know what? I love what you just said, by the way, because if I really think about it, that is spot on. It's indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that. I mean that you go, as a kid, you go to school and they just go, here's this, here's that, instead of going, here's the facts, make up your own mind.
Right. And that's,
here's what this person said, here's what this happens. You make up your own mind and become your own person.
Yeah, if I find this woman's video again, I'll send it to you. But this woman was so crazily right on. It was ridiculous. Yeah. She was telling everybody how with her third grade class and even an adult class at some point, she divided them up according to race, and their race was determined by the color of their eyes. So all the blue-eyed people were here, all the brown-eyed people were there. And she said the amount of hatred that came out with people, even in the third grade, was not hatred in their case, but just dislike of people that are different, was immense. Another good point she made was that there are no races. There is only one race. It's the human race. And she went on to explain, and I don't know if this is true or not, why there are, or how there are different colors of people, according to where, I don't know, like everybody started out at the equator, everybody was dark skinned, whatever. So, and then the further away you got from the equator, the lighter skinned you got. I have no idea if any of that is valid or not, but her main point was that there is one race, and it is the human race, and that bigotry.
And we need to fight animals.
Yeah, and bigotry is not. We're not born with it. We learn it, and you mentioned things about Jewish people. And being Jewish, it freaked me out once. I don't think I ever really experienced any real, whatever it is, racism or whatever, until I was in college, and I had a job in the library, and for 3 months or whatever, my desk was opposite this other guy, and he spent 3 months telling me how the Jews are ruining the world and all this stuff. And finally, I got up the courage to say, hey, I'm Jewish. Do you know that? Well, no, but you're different, I
don't know. I shouldn't laugh at this, but we're just true. So dumb. We're so dumb.
Yeah.
Myself is special. I mean, we are so dumb.
No, we all go to each other. We go that black guy is different. Why is he different? Because you know him. He's a person.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
The Jewish guy is different because why? Because
and probably all of it is fear.
Oh, it's fear. It's stupidity.
But fear is really, to me, the big, it's my biggest problem is things I'm afraid of. I don't like, and when I see myself and other people, I don't like them, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know.
Fear. I think fear is probably the most motivating factor in racism. You become afraid of somebody. You become afraid of Black people. You become afraid.
Well, the fear. I mean, is you feel threatened. And I don't mean physically threatened, but there's something about them that threatens your little world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh God, this is so, I wish I wasn't going to say this, but you could be this white guy that thinks my girlfriend wants to sleep with that black guy. So I hate them because he's unattractive, because he's muscular and really good looking and stuff. And I mean, that example I've seen before where guys, you're super threatened.
It's
I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's fear. And as that woman said, it's indoctrination. We were taught that, the slaves were violent because, well, wouldn't you be violent if you were a slave?
And if you're trying to protect your slave business, of course you're going to say that.
Yeah.
Everyone says that. Oh, he threatened me. That's why I shot him on my driveway. He did,
If we really want this to stop, we just have to stop ignoring it. We have to deal with it. We have to, when we see things like, look, every cop is not like this guy. I would hope that the majority of police are, they're there to do their job and for justice. But you have this section of like idiots that don't give a shit and hate Black people or whatever. I mean, or like whether this was racist or not, how do you do that to a human being?
Yeah.
The guy's gasping. I want my mother. Are you kidding?
Yeah. I don't even want, because you hit on something that didn't occur to me. Let's just say it's not racist. He took a man and put his knee on his neck while the guy was pleading for his life. Right. And this isn't the first time. This has happened over and over and over and over and over. And we just forget about it.
Well, that's just
and then people will go like, look what they're doing. They're riding the streets. What else can people do? Because I want to go break some fucking wind. I mean, I feel,
the
go
only
ahead.
Part of the rioting that I don't like is the rioting. I don't like the
That's a fake statement.
Stores. I know. I don't like the breaking into stores and stuff like that. And because sometimes, and probably more often than not, the people that are doing that are looting, they're just looting to loot. It's not like those people are trying to make a statement. The people that are trying to make a statement are lost in this whole
fury. I mean, they're fed up.
Well, it's another thing is on the news last night, they were interviewing a Black guy whose business they lit a fire. They burned down. And he's standing there talking to the reporter with, I think, his wife and friend or whatever, going like, my life savings, everything was in that store. It's like, well, you've just ruined a community. And you're tearing down, you're burning down your community. Not that I'm saying they should do it anywhere, but at the same time, you just shouldn't do it. I'm all for protesting. In my history, I've been to Washington in the 60s and the 70s and all that stuff, and been sprayed and maced and all that shit. But Alexa's talking to me.
Would you like to book a trip to Washington to get sprayed?
Yeah. It's it's idiocy. It really is. I don't like the destruction part of it. One of my personal heroes is Martin Luther King. And he was all for peaceful protest. And I know there are plenty of people that go like, we can't, we've done peaceful protest and that sort of thing. But
Eddie, I'm so sorry. I have to pause you for 1 second. I have to pee so bad that I can't sit here anymore.
Okay.
I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay. I love it.
All right, much better.
I just had a great conversation with myself.
Good. I didn't want to leave like a heavy conversation and then just go, okay, that's the end of the show. Bye.
It was like I was going like, well, what does somebody do when he's being recorded and the camera goes, well, let's see. I rearranged my book, whatever.
You know what? Do you think you and I live in a bubble because of the Improv and because of LA?
I don't. Yes and no. It's funny. See, like I've been brought up and lived in the two biggest cities in the country, New York and Chicago and LA. And both of those cities, New York especially, are very, very much a melting pot. I grew up with every type of person. Everybody. Nobody really even, at least outwardly, your friends were everything.
And well, also about from my perception, being in New York is also like, you have to make a decision. Am I going to get along or am I going to live in hell? Because if you have to interact with everybody, you just go, oh, life is so much easier if I just accept everybody and get along. And granted, there's fights and there's stuff that happens, but that's anywhere.
Right.
But it seems to me like people in New York, you just accept. I live here. There's Italians, there's Irish, there's Puerto Ricans, there's these people, and you have and there's black people, and there's Jamaicans, and you have no choice but to go, do I want my life to be miserable, or do I want to just get along and enjoy it? And I think most New Yorkers just do that.
Because that's the way it is there. And maybe LA and New York are bubbles, because when you listen to people like whoever that police chief was that was talking about, like, God, I don't know, it's just saying something stupid like we've got to look at all the facts, and we're all going like, you just watched the facts.
Yeah, there's one fact.
It doesn't matter if that guy shot 10 people. The bottom line is he is detained. He is handcuffed, whatever. It's over.
Yeah,
You don't have the right to kill him, even though you may, want to, had he done what I said, but he didn't. And so I think the bottom line with all of it is ignoring it. And that is all our bubbles. We don't go through it. We don't know what it's like to be black or Hispanic or have people look at you like, oh man, now there goes the neighborhood, all that stereotype.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'll tell you.
It's not funny, but I'm just like, God dang. I just,
I've lived in all kinds of places, and in New York especially, everybody was different. It's a lot more segregated in its own way out here, because when you think about it, how many of your neighbors are a different color?
I have one couple that's different.
I mean, it's in New York.
Well, that's not true. The people downstairs are Cuban, and then.
Okay, but in general, it's like that.
No, my neighborhood is at least 80% white. Mm-hmm. At least. I mean, it might be way more than that, but I don't see a lot. I mean, I see there's a couple of black people down the street that I see go for walks every day, but then again, I don't know if it's in relation to the population. I don't know. Well, I don't know.
It might be, but my point is that in New York, if you have 5 apartments on a floor, you could have 5 different ethnicities. Whereas out here in general, not out here, I mean, that's why New York, I think, is a little bit more, a little bit more conducive to people liking everybody, different people or whatever. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but, you're mixing.
I think what you said about the guy in the library saying, oh, you're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And you saying that, well, that's because you know me. I think that's a big key,
Yeah, I know it is. I mean, you hear that all the time from, well, you're different. No, I'm not. It's just that you know me. Yeah. It's like, why do you, I've had people say to me like, why are you so nice? And that's kind of weird for me. But it's like I'm going like, why shouldn't I be? It's like you're no different than anybody else.
Well, it's like my friend Anderson, who
Mm-hmm.
I've had people at the Improv go, "What's your friend's problem?" And I go, "What?" And they go, "He just walks around like such a dick." And I go, "He's one of the biggest hearted guys I know." I'm like, just the way he walks.
Yeah.
And two servers went, "What's up? What's his problem?" And I'm like, "He's one of the that guy goes to camp and takes care of kids with cancer for 2 weeks a year. He gives away stuff. He does stuff." And I go, just the way he walks like an a-hole. And I go, people interpret it as.
You have to get to know people.
Yeah.
And if you keep them away from you, you're not going to get to know them. You're always going to be afraid. You're always going to think they're out to get you. They're out to get your women or whatever. And it's like, they are no different. Everybody is no different from anybody else. We're all the same.
Well, everybody has the same wants and needs. They want love, safety, and everybody needs other people to know they exist. And but I don't want to sound stereotypical, like, oh, that I'm so good, because I'm not. But it's just been occurring to me lately a lot that I feel helpless, and I don't want to sit by and not say anything. But I also don't want to be interpreted as some guy jumping on the bandwagon.
All the people that you read online, I think, are doing just what you said. I just want everybody to know I'm not a racist, blah, blah, blah. Well, you really want to do something, stop ignoring what the issues are. We all need to get out there and figure out a way to,
integrate, talk, communicate.
Integrate, talk, but I'm talking about like reaffirm what the police stand for. They don't stand for, or shouldn't stand for, racism. Yet that's what we see. And it's like the only way any of that is going to change is if everybody decides we're not going to ignore the issue and we are going to all get together and fix this. It's not going to be easy, and it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. It's going to still take a long time, and it'll probably never get solved.
And you know what? You're right, because you think about there's certain jobs where you really have to lower the tolerance for the bad apples. Mm-hmm. The cops, priests. Mm-hmm. There can't be there's going to be a certain amount of priests that are pedophiles, and you look at the numbers, you're like, there's an unnatural amount of priests that are pedophiles. Right. And they just cover it up. And it's the same with the cops. Everyone wants to protect their own. It's just like if your son was drinking and driving and hit somebody, your first impulse would be like, I got to save my son.
Yeah.
But everyone is protecting their own, but there needs to be much lower tolerances for all this stuff for people that are, and the same with politics, I think.
Well, it's very, yes. Well,
we need to start calling people out on their bullshit and and holding people accountable. And I don't know how, because I really feel powerless.
Well, because you are. We're all powerless.
That sucks.
By ourselves. And that's why, back in the day in the 60s, when we did all this protesting and stuff, there were eventually we caused the end of the Vietnam War with all the protests and everything else, no matter what anybody says. But in between then and even now, there's, the new generations have not had a focal point to rally behind. And this could very well be it. You want to rally behind something, let's rally behind everybody is really equal. You do not stop somebody because they are Black. You do not stop somebody because of any, they're Hispanic or whatever. If you watch any of these videos now, so many of these guys are just taping these cops. Why did you stop me? What's your name? I don't have to give you my name, that kind of thing. And they don't, because they have not committed a crime, and they're just being stopped.
Yeah, but then you're running the risk of the guy getting freaked out and pulling a gun on you.
Well, that's just it. That's why they tape him.
I mean, you tell the cop, I'm not giving you my name. Next thing you know, he's got his hand on his gun.
Well, the people that say that in general, like I said, the ones I've watched, they're videotaping these things on their phones. And they do it, for their own exercise, in the sense that I don't have to tell them I didn't do anything. Well, okay, I mean, and you do have that right. At the same time, if it was me, I'd probably just give him my name and show him my license and whatever. But I'm not Black.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it's like to have somebody stop you every 10 seconds because you're Black. Not because you did something wrong, but and it turns out that the guy, George Floyd, it wasn't, they said, forgery or something like that. It was a counterfeit $20 bill that they marked and saw was counterfeit, and he was already outside the store when they called. So all of everything that went on is really very simply because he's black. Once those
Mm-hmm.
cops got there, just
Yeah.
once in a while, you would like to see a black cop involved in this and make somebody stop.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, he didn't do anything. Leave him alone. And
Yeah.
that, again, going back to him, why didn't somebody just rush this stupid fucking cop? Yeah, would you have gotten killed? I guess. I don't know. But at the same time, that is a horrible way to die. Somebody crushing your neck, and it's wrong. And in a month, we're going to forget about it.
Of course we are. It just keeps
Yeah.
on happening.
Mm-hmm.
It just keeps on happening. The only one that sticks out is because of everything burned down was Rodney King.
Yeah. Well,
And that was the
also,
first one I experienced. That was
now
scary. I was here.
everybody is taping everything. So
Yeah.
everything now is out there.
Yeah.
And, I was here for Rodney King too. And, all that stuff, it just seems to happen to black guys. I don't know.
It doesn't just seem to. That seems.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
the evidence. Is it's not. There's never this white kid did this and they held him against a fence so long he was choked out. And it's always.
I know. And there, and then going back to what the heck is it? The jogger that got killed a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're like, now they filed murder charges against the guy that was taking the pictures. And they're wondering, did these other two guys tell him what was going to happen? So come along, did they know each other? It's like, come on, people, it's let's stop already.
Yeah.
These people are human beings. Everybody's a human being. We're in one race. We are not going to solve the problem unless we stop ignoring it.
Yeah. I just keep on going back to the thought that I live in so much of my time, I'm not trying to loosely tie it back into the improv, but my days and nights for decades were inside the improv. Always.
Yep.
And that was my world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't see that. And it's weird.
Well, it's like not that you don't see it, Mike. It's that you don't experience it. What you're experiencing is life about you. I don't mean about. I mean, around you, and which is a very integrated, non-confrontational type of thing. But once you leave those four walls of the improv, you are still the same. But a black person isn't. Black person walks through that door and goes like, fuck, do I look left? Do I look right? What's going to happen? I mean, think about, can you even fathom what it's like to just be stopped on the street because you're black? And even for your parents to have to say to you, if you get stopped by a cop, just say yes, sir, no, sir.
Eddie,
whatever.
I can't fathom what it's like to be a mom and have your daughter get stopped by the cops when she's out with her friends and asked if she's turning tricks.
Yeah.
Like, what's that going to do for her head?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, they think I'm a prostitute.
Yeah.
And then she's just going to grow up super healthy, like, and have self-esteem and stuff.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Can you even imagine a cop pulling over a 13-year-old white girl? Are you out here hooking?
I can't imagine a cop pulling up a 13-year-old black girl. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Give me a break. This is a kid walking down the street or whatever.
Yeah.
And you decide that she must be a prostitute because she's black, which is really what it is. How can you even ask that question?
Yeah.
It's like, Mom, do I look like a prostitute? And it's like you said, that's in her head now.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
And some stupid ass cop or whomever just decided to ruin somebody's day, week, month, year, life, whatever. And that's it. But again, if we don't stop ignoring it, and we do live in bubbles because we're not confronted every day and we're not involved in it. When I taught, when I was teaching in school, it was, it was weird in the sense that I only dealt with kids, period. And that I never really, in the school itself, you don't visibly see racism, but where you see racism is in the amount of supplies your school gets, as opposed to either an integrated or all white school. These are very subtle things, but that's
Was your school all black?
Yeah, it was all black. There was one Asian, if I remember correctly, and that's because stereotypically his parents owned the laundry in the neighborhood. But that was it. Yeah, it was all black. It was right in the center of Harlem on 149th and 7th Avenue. G. Riley?
Yeah, I met him at your party.
Yeah, G went to that school that I taught at. So it's we don't notice it, but it's there. Again, like I said, I didn't see it because everything is they're all black, so there's no racism. But then again, like I said, how many supplies do we get compared to a school in the middle of Manhattan?
Yeah. Did your students ever talk to you about you being white?
Well, freaky enough, one kid once said to me, generally no, but one kid said to me, because I had a full beard and red hair, so the only part of my face you saw is my forehead, comes crying up to my door one day, and I'm going like, "What's the matter with you?" And he said, "Mr. Burke, is it true you're white?" Like, but in general, no, it's because, I don't know, maybe I'm infantile, but I related well to kids.
Yeah.
I was not a pushover. I was pretty stern, didn't take any shit, and they knew it. And that was a sign of respect to them and for them and from me. And so it's a nutty kind of experience, but it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, I enjoyed working with the kids. I did not enjoy the system.
Yeah, of course. I hear that from teachers all the time. The time.
I did not enjoy the what's the word? The bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And stuff that you had to deal with. I mean, it's kind of like what made me quit when I did. It was like nothing changes because you don't have enough people that are accountable. One example is, and I might have told you this, I got this kid a scholarship that was on a basketball team to a private school, an all-white private school. And I found out later, when I had to take the paperwork to the guidance counselor, nobody has ever applied or tried to get these kids scholarships into this type of things. And this was at a time when all these white private schools were looking to integrate, bring in minorities and stuff like that. But nobody there was doing that. It was like, the guidance counselor was like, had 5 more years to retirement or some shit like that.
Yeah, she's not going to.
Yeah, they don't care. I was just shocked that, to my knowledge, it hadn't been done before. We're not talking about rocket science or anything special. You know
what I think will be interesting is a conversation with you and Donnell about race.
Don, yeah, that would be. It is.
Well, because I'd like to hear his opinion, and I know I kind of have an idea what it's going to be from conversations I've had with other comics. But he's had to work the system.
Yeah, well, that you see, yeah, that's another thing. Can you imagine what it's kind of like to have to respect people you don't, and because of your color and coming up. But the other side of that is that when you get to where you're going or want to go, and you do get there, you are now in control. You are now in charge.
And guess what? People interpret it the same way they do with women, as this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
He's a pain in the ass.
I listened to an interview with Ari Spears last night. Was it Ari Spears or Cat Williams? One of them was talking about Bernie Mac, and the fact that he was, and it might have been Cat Williams. He was their king. Bernie Mac.
No, Bernie Mac was a tragedy because he was great.
Yeah, and he was saying they offered him because he was black. They were just talking about his show was profiting $500 million or whatever, and they only offered him $50 million for whatever. I don't remember all the details, but it's you get to the point where you can now say, well, maybe you don't ever get to the point where you can say, all right, I'm black. I am now president of this company and I can do what I want. Well, there's only one person to my knowledge that is like that, and that's Tyler Perry, who is so powerful as a black man. He can do whatever he wants.
Well, there's more than that. Like if you look at the acting world, Will Smith can pretty much call the shots and demand whatever he wants. And Denzel, there's a bunch of people, but there's not compared to white people.
Oh, no.
And if you're Hispanic, you're just
they're none.
effed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they very rarely give Hispanic people TV shows or breaks. And, Freddie Prinze was like the token, but that was also because he was brilliant and an amazing comic and famous and stuff. But I mean, I hear those, I've talked to Steve Trevino about it a bunch of times. Pompa's kind of talked about it a little bit, but not, he's just a nice guy and doesn't, it's like, it's,
well, Christella had her own show too.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know this as a fact, but I think she went through shit too. With, especially when they canceled it, that maybe her numbers were good enough to be renewed, but they didn't. And maybe because she was Hispanic, but
it's a weird thing in show business too, because a lot of, I can't really speak to this, but it's my opinion that a lot of people interpret showbiz stuff as racist when really it's just showbiz sucks.
Yeah, and it's just
well, I mean, everybody and we've known dozens of people who have had their shows canceled, and a lot of those people are like, this is ridiculous, and they're a-holes, and they're the worst network, and they're this and that, and you're like, I don't know, man. I mean, I think if you're making someone money, you're probably going to stick around.
Yeah, in general, it's just that you don't know the mindset anymore of people, even successful comics. Gerard Carmichael, who I love as a person and a performer, when he had his show, I don't know if it was 1 season or 2 seasons.
Yeah, the Carmichael show.
Yeah. I don't know this is a fact again. I kind of heard that he was offered to continue the show either on the same network or by Netflix or somebody, and that he just turned it down. He just didn't want to. He had other things that he wanted to do. I mean, from your perspective and my perspective, they're going to pay me again, and I have a show on network or Netflix these days. I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But for younger people now, everything is different. Their mindsets are different. Their decision-making processes are different. We have no idea, what anybody's going to do. How many times, look at all these people that work for SNL and quit. Why would you quit? Sorry. But see, I'm a different generation.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I was taught security. That's why I ended up going into teaching. Was my mother talked me into like, look, you're a member of a union, you get a pension and blah, blah, blah. So, that was her generation, was like into security because they didn't have it. And now people don't seem to be worried too much again about security. It's kind of, well, what I want to do. I told you the story about Adam Ferrara. He came in, he was doing a series with, what's her name? Sarah
Bonnie McFarlane.
No. Oh, yes, it was Bonnie McFarlane. Right. I'm sorry. I always make it Sarah, but it was Bonnie McFarlane. And he came in one day and the show really was pathetic. It was bad. And he's going like, Eddie, man, I think I'm going to quit this show and this and that. I said, Adam, don't quit it. Write it out. I said, you'll make your money and then you will be just an actor that lost a show. That's all. If you quit it, no, it's not going to be the same. Plus, the goal, I think, in entertainment is to make as much money as you can so you get to the point where you are now in control of you. You can say yes or no, whatever. And if you're there, then fine. If not, take the money and put it away because you don't have many weeks left anyway. I said, as well as I do, that show's going to go. It's going to be gone. And write it out. And there's a lot of people that take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of those people. Every time I would start making money on something, I'd just go, "Oh, this is going to happen forever," and just spend it all. And then when it stops, I'm like, "Oh no!"
Yeah,
now
how
what?
do I pay my rent? Yep,
Yeah.
It's a nutty world out there and all. Let's end this.
All right, Eddie. Thank you for 50 weeks.
Okay, I'll let you know who we have next week. I'm trying to get. I've got feelers out to a couple of people. A lot of people aren't responding anymore. But I may. What was I going to say? I may. There's somebody who was. Anyway, all right. Did we already signed off? Did we not?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, guys, then we're going to sign off right here and right now. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Please keep listening. This is our 50th consecutive episode. And if we're anything, it's consistent. Hopefully you enjoy some of the stuff we do. Email me at eddiesbar@improv.com for any ideas or any areas you'd like to see or know about that we can get people on for. And as Mike said earlier, if there are behind the scenes things that you want to know about, please let us know. Again, Eddie's Bar at the Improv, eddiesbar@improv.com. Until next time, guys, peace.